Freedom. The very word evokes a sense of liberation, of boundless possibility, of escape from the chains of society and the expectations of others. It is a universal desire, one that transcends time and culture. Yet in the context of the ancient Stoic philosophers, freedom means something radically different. It is not the freedom to own possessions, climb the social ladder, or live without restriction. No, for Seneca and the Stoics, true freedom is found not in external circumstances, but in the freedom of the mind, and this freedom can remain untouched even when everything else is lost. Consider the paradox. How can one be free when everything is lost? How can freedom survive the loss of wealth, social status, health, or even life itself? Seneca, the Roman Stoic philosopher, answers this question with his life and his writings, offering a profound insight into what it truly means to be free. The Stoic view of freedom is not grounded in the material or external world. It is something deeper, more intrinsic. It is an internal state that remains unaffected by external events. For the Stoic, real freedom is found in how we respond to life's inevitable challenges. To be free is not to live a life unburdened by loss, but to cultivate the ability to remain unshaken by it. Seneca teaches that when we lose everything, we are presented with the greatest opportunity to test our true sense of freedom. This paradox is the cornerstone of Stoic thought. Freedom does not arise from the external world, nor is it dependent on external conditions. It arises from within, in how we align ourselves with nature, in how we govern our thoughts, and in how we train our minds to rise above the chaos of life. Seneca understood that we are often slaves to our desires, possessions, and the ever-changing fortune of life. True freedom, then, lies not in escaping these forces, but in mastering our response to them. Seneca, despite being a man of great wealth, status, and influence, experienced the volatility of life firsthand. He was exiled, stripped of his wealth, and even faced the threat of execution. Through it all, Seneca remained steadfast in his Stoic beliefs, using his own life as a testament to the idea that true freedom is not tied to fortune, but to virtue and self-control. The Stoic philosophy teaches us that freedom exists in the mind, in how we choose to approach hardship, and in how we can maintain inner peace despite the tumult of the world around us. In this video, we explore the Stoic paradox of freedom through the lens of Seneca's teachings. What does it mean to be truly free in a world that constantly changes? How can we find peace and liberation when everything else slips through our fingers? Seneca's life and philosophy offer a profound answer. True freedom is not the absence of loss or suffering, but the ability to navigate them with wisdom, virtue, and tranquility. Seneca's Stoic paradox challenges us to reconsider our modern understanding of freedom. In a world where many are taught to define themselves by what they own, what they achieve, or how others perceive them, Seneca's message is a call to look within. The freedom he speaks of is not a distant dream, but a present reality if we can learn to cultivate it. It is in embracing the inevitable losses of life with grace, understanding, and self-mastery that we discover what true freedom really is. In a world dominated by the pursuit of material wealth, status, and fleeting achievements, loss is often viewed as the greatest tragedy, something to be feared, avoided, or resisted at all costs. We are taught to accumulate, to protect, and to safeguard our possessions, our health, and our place in society, believing that these external markers of success define our worth. But in Seneca's view, these attachments to external things are the very things that enslave us. Loss, in the Stoic sense, is not an enemy to be defeated, but a natural and inevitable part of life. And it is through our understanding and acceptance of this loss that we can achieve the true freedom of the mind. The Stoics, Seneca included, believed that everything external to us is temporary, impermanent, and beyond our control. Wealth, power, social standing, and even our bodies are fleeting. They come into our lives by chance, and they can be taken away just as easily. To place our security, our happiness, or our sense of identity in something that can be lost is to tether ourselves to something unstable, something outside the realm of our true control. The Stoic wisdom, then, is not in trying to avoid or protect these external things, but in learning to let go of the attachment to them altogether. Seneca himself knew the bitter taste of loss. Despite his early wealth and political power, he was exiled to the island of Corsica, a punishment imposed by the Emperor Caligula. He faced the loss of his position, his wealth, and his reputation, and yet, rather than succumb to despair or bitterness, he used this time in exile as an opportunity for deep philosophical reflection. Seneca's exile became one of the most formative periods of his life, as it forced him to confront his attachments to the external world and seek a deeper form of freedom. It was here that he honed the Stoic understanding that external losses are inevitable and must be accepted with equanimity. To lose everything, Seneca taught, is not the greatest misfortune. The greatest misfortune is to lose yourself, to become enslaved by the fear of losing external things. For Seneca, the loss of wealth, status, and possessions is not the true tragedy. The tragedy lies in the loss of the mind, the ability to govern our thoughts, to maintain inner peace, and to remain free despite the turbulence of life. In Letters from a Stoic, Seneca writes, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." This simple, yet profound statement encapsulates the Stoic understanding of external loss. If we are not attached to the things that can be taken from us, then the loss of these things cannot truly harm us. Our inner peace does not depend on the accumulation of wealth or the avoidance of hardship. It depends on our ability to control our desires and to respond to life with wisdom and virtue. Seneca challenges us to reconsider how we define our worth. If we view ourselves only through the lens of external markers, our job, our wealth, our social standing, then any loss of these things will feel like a personal annihilation. But if we base our sense of self on our character, our virtue, and our ability to remain calm in the face of adversity, then the loss of external things becomes not a destruction of the self, but a reminder of what truly matters. The Stoic practice, then, is to detach ourselves from the things we cannot control and focus our energy on cultivating the only true possession we have: our ability to respond with dignity and grace to the inevitable fluctuations of life. The loss of wealth and status can often be perceived as the end of one's identity, but Seneca teaches us that it is, in fact, an opportunity to reconnect with our true essence. The Stoic wisdom is not to see loss as something that diminishes us, but as something that reveals what we are made of. When all external things are stripped away, what remains is our character, and it is this inner strength that defines who we truly are. Loss, when seen from a Stoic perspective, becomes an opportunity to cultivate resilience, to test our virtues, and to build a deeper connection with the only thing that cannot be lost: our inner freedom. Loss is an inevitable part of the human condition, and yet, instead of seeing it as a tragedy, Seneca invites us to see it as an opportunity for growth. It is through the acceptance of loss, the understanding that everything external is temporary, that we free ourselves from the fear of losing it all. For in truth, we never truly own anything that is external to us. Wealth, fame, and even life itself can be taken from us in an instant. But what we can always own is our response, our thoughts, and our ability to remain free in the face of loss. At the heart of Seneca's philosophy, and indeed of Stoic philosophy in general, lies a fundamental distinction between what is within our control and what is not. This division is crucial for understanding how one can remain free, even in the face of great loss. For the Stoics, the key to true freedom is not in trying to control everything around us, which is ultimately impossible, but in focusing only on the things we can control: our thoughts, our actions, and our reactions. Everything else, our possessions, our reputation, our circumstances, lies outside our control, and to bind ourselves to them is to invite suffering. Seneca's wisdom in this regard is simple, yet profound. The only thing that is truly within our control is the mind. Everything else is subject to forces beyond our influence. Our wealth, our health, the actions of others, all of these can change without warning, and to place our happiness, our peace, and our freedom in these external factors is to set ourselves up for inevitable disappointment. For Seneca, the only way to maintain true freedom is to recognize that we cannot control the world around us, but we can always control how we respond to it. This concept of control is central to the Stoic worldview. The Stoics believe that human suffering arises not from external events themselves, but from the way we react to those events. When we lose something, whether it's wealth, loved ones, or status, we often experience pain not because of the loss itself, but because of our attachment to it, our desire to retain it, and our belief that our happiness depends on its permanence. Seneca writes in Letters from a Stoic, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. Our time is often wasted by being preoccupied with things that are beyond our control, by focusing on what we don't have rather than what we can do with what we have." The Stoic concept of control is not about becoming indifferent or detached from the world. It's about understanding where true power lies. It's about recognizing that while we cannot control the actions of others, the future, or the circumstances we find ourselves in, we can control how we respond. We can choose to meet every challenge with wisdom, to act with virtue, and to remain true to our inner principles. By shifting our focus to our inner state, we reclaim the only true freedom that exists, the freedom to choose how we perceive and respond to the world. Seneca himself practiced this philosophy during some of the most challenging moments of his life. He experienced political exile, the loss of wealth, and the constant threat of death. And yet, throughout all of this, he maintained his Stoic commitment to controlling his inner responses. The external world, with all its chaos and uncertainty, could not touch his core sense of peace. He was, in many ways, a living testament to the power of controlling the mind. Even as he was ordered to commit suicide by Emperor Nero, Seneca faced death with remarkable calm and dignity. His final words were not of regret or bitterness, but of acceptance, a reflection of the Stoic ideal that the mind is the only thing truly in our control. This ability to control our responses is not a passive surrender to fate, but an active engagement with our own minds. Seneca suggests that we must practice mindfulness, cultivate self-discipline, and develop the ability to detach ourselves from the turbulence of external events. This is not about repressing our emotions or pretending that pain does not exist. It is about recognizing that we have the power to choose our emotional reactions. It is about finding peace, not in the absence of difficulty, but in the way we navigate through it. The Stoic concept of control also teaches us how to endure loss without being devastated by it. Seneca suggests that by practicing detachment, we prepare ourselves to face the inevitable losses that life will bring. Instead of clinging to material wealth or external achievements, we learn to hold them lightly, knowing that they can be taken from us at any moment. This detachment does not mean that we do not care about these things, but that we do not place our ultimate happiness in them. By doing so, we free ourselves from the fear of losing them. As Seneca puts it, loss is a part of life. We lose wealth, we lose loved ones, we lose opportunities. But the one thing we cannot lose is our mind. In the world of Stoic philosophy, there is one guiding principle that stands above all else, one thing that is unshakable, unmovable, and that is virtue. For Seneca, as for the other Stoics, virtue is the only true good. Everything else, wealth, health, status, or pleasure, is fleeting, transitory, and ultimately outside of our control. Virtue, on the other hand, is the only thing that remains entirely within our power. It is the essence of the Stoic way of life, and it is through the cultivation of virtue that one can achieve true freedom. What does it mean to cultivate virtue? For Seneca, virtue is not a passive state or an abstract ideal. It is an active living practice. Virtue is the ability to act in accordance with reason and nature, to act with integrity and wisdom, and to live a life that is consistent with our highest moral principles. The Stoic virtues, wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance, are the foundation of a free life. They are the qualities that allow us to live with purpose, even in the face of adversity. They are the qualities that allow us to remain free, even when everything else in life is lost. Seneca's life itself was a testament to the power of virtue. Despite his early wealth and political influence, he experienced significant personal and political turmoil, including exile, the loss of wealth, and the constant threat of death. Yet, through it all, he remained committed to the Stoic virtues. His external circumstances might have changed, but his character, his virtue, remained steadfast. His inner freedom, derived from his commitment to virtue, was untouched by the volatility of the world around him. Virtue, for Seneca, is what allows us to remain truly free, regardless of external circumstances. When we live virtuously, we are not enslaved by the whims of fortune or the fear of losing everything. We become impervious to the fluctuations of life. We do not define ourselves by our possessions or our status, but by our character. As Seneca famously said, a good character is a guard against misfortune. When we cultivate virtue, we are no longer dependent on external things to define our happiness or our peace. Instead, we find these qualities within ourselves. But how does one cultivate virtue in a world that constantly pulls us toward distraction, indulgence, and the pursuit of material success? Seneca's answer is simple. Through constant reflection, practice, and discipline. The Stoic way of life requires us to examine our thoughts and actions daily, to ensure that we are living in accordance with reason and virtue. We must strive to act with wisdom, not by seeking external rewards, but by understanding the nature of things and aligning our actions with this understanding. Seneca teaches that virtue is not something that can be acquired overnight. It is a lifelong practice that requires both self-discipline and self-awareness. To live virtuously is to confront our weaknesses, to recognize our flaws, and to work daily to overcome them. It is a process of constant improvement, not for the sake of personal glory or gain, but for the sake of living in harmony with nature and reason. This cultivation of virtue also involves a deep understanding of the impermanence of external things. Seneca often reminds us that material possessions and worldly achievements are temporary. We can lose our wealth, our health, and even our relationships, but if we have cultivated virtue, we have something that cannot be taken away. Seneca writes in Letters from a Stoic, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." The same applies to virtue. True virtue is not about the external acts of goodness we perform, but the inner state of being that we cultivate. It is a way of being that is not dependent on external validation, but is grounded in the integrity of our character. Virtue also gives us the freedom to navigate loss and hardship with grace. When we lose something valuable, be it wealth, status, or a loved one, it is easy to become consumed by grief, anger, or fear. But for Seneca, virtue allows us to endure these losses with equanimity. The virtuous person does not react impulsively to misfortune. Instead, they respond with wisdom, understanding, and acceptance. They understand that loss is a natural part of life, and that it is not the loss itself that causes suffering, but our attachment to it. The practice of virtue also frees us from the tyranny of our desires. In a world that constantly urges us to seek more and more wealth, more pleasure, more status, virtue teaches us to be content with what we have, to find peace and simplicity, and to recognize that true happiness does not come from external acquisitions. By practicing temperance, we learn to control our desires and to find satisfaction in the present moment, without needing to constantly chase after fleeting pleasures. Freedom, as Seneca understood it, is not an external condition. It is a mental and spiritual state, a reflection of how we respond to life's trials and tribulations. The mind is the battleground where true freedom is won or lost. It is not the loss of wealth or the upheaval of our circumstances that enslaves us, but our reactions to them. The mind, Seneca teaches, has the power to shape our experience of the world, and it is through training the mind that we find the path to genuine freedom. The Stoics, in general, held that the mind is the one domain where we possess complete control. Everything outside of us, our wealth, health, social status, and even the actions of others, is subject to forces beyond our control. But the mind remains a fortress, a space where we can decide how to interpret and respond to the world around us. This realization, for Seneca, was the key to freedom. If we can control how we think about things, we can control how they affect us. In other words, no external event, no matter how painful or disruptive, has the power to enslave us unless we allow it to. Seneca's writings are filled with advice on how to master the mind. One of his key points is that our perceptions of events, not the events themselves, are what cause us to suffer. External events are neutral by nature. It is only when we add our judgments, desires, and fears to them that they become sources of pain. For example, the death of a loved one is undoubtedly painful, but the suffering we experience from it is compounded by our attachment, our fear of losing them, and our resistance to the natural flow of life. Seneca teaches us that to be truly free, we must learn to see events as they are, simply as occurrences in a world beyond our control, and respond to them with wisdom and equanimity. This is the essence of the Stoic practice of amor fati, the love of fate. It is the acceptance of whatever life brings, not as a burden or a misfortune, but as a part of the natural order. By accepting the things we cannot change, we free ourselves from the suffering that comes with resistance. Seneca writes, "A wise man is invincible in the face of hardship, for he is ruled not by external forces, but by his inner self." In this light, freedom is not the absence of difficulty or loss. It is the ability to navigate those challenges with inner peace. The mind's power to shape our experience also extends to our emotional responses. We often believe that our emotions are uncontrollable, that they are caused by external events or people. But Seneca argues that emotions are not spontaneous reactions. They are judgments we make about events. If we can change our judgments, we can change our emotional responses. This is a radical shift in perspective. Instead of feeling helpless in the face of our emotions, we begin to see them as products of our thoughts and beliefs. If we can control our thoughts, we can control our emotions, and, by extension, our freedom. The mind's power in defining freedom also lies in its ability to detach us from the constant fluctuations of external circumstances. In a world that constantly changes, where we lose wealth, face sickness, or encounter disappointment, the mind can provide the stability we need. Through training in Stoic practices like mindfulness, self-reflection, and rational thinking, we can cultivate a mental state that remains calm and focused, regardless of the external chaos. The Stoic sage is not someone who avoids hardship, but someone who can endure it with composure, knowing that their peace of mind is independent of the events around them. Seneca's own life is a profound example of this mental freedom. Despite the personal and political upheavals he faced, from exile to the threat of death, he maintained a sense of peace that came from within. His ability to detach from his circumstances, to control his reactions, and to cultivate inner virtue was what allowed him to remain free. When his political enemies conspired against him and ordered his execution, Seneca met his death calmly and with dignity. He had cultivated the strength of mind to face death not as an end, but as a natural part of life's cycle. For Seneca, this was the ultimate demonstration of freedom, to be able to face the greatest of losses, even life itself, without losing one's inner peace. The practice of cultivating a free mind is not an abstract or philosophical exercise. It is a practical discipline that can be applied in everyday life. Seneca encourages us to examine our thoughts regularly, to question our attachments, and to challenge the judgments that lead us to suffering. He writes, "He who is brave is free, and he who is virtuous is invincible." Virtue, wisdom, and courage are not mere ideals. They are the tools that allow us to shape our minds and, by extension, our experience of the world. Through these tools, we create a fortress of mental freedom that no external event can penetrate. In Seneca's worldview, loss is not just an unfortunate event to be mourned or avoided. It is an inevitable part of the human experience, a teacher that offers us an opportunity to grow, to refine our character, and to deepen our understanding of life. Far from being a source of despair, loss is, in the Stoic sense, a chance to rise above our attachments and demonstrate our mastery over the passions. It is in the face of loss that the strength of the Stoic mind is tested and proved. Seneca believed that the key to surviving and even thriving in the face of loss lies in our ability to perceive it differently. Instead of seeing loss as something that diminishes us, we must learn to view it as a natural and necessary part of life. When we lose something, we are given the opportunity to practice the Stoic virtues: resilience, courage, patience, and gratitude. Loss, in this sense, becomes a crucible, a space where we are forged into stronger, wiser individuals. The Stoic does not see loss as a tragedy. They see it as a challenge to grow. The first step in accepting loss is to recognize its inevitability. Seneca often reminds us that we cannot escape the laws of nature. Everything we have, our wealth, our health, our loved ones, is transient. The Stoic does not cling to the illusion of permanence, but acknowledges the fleeting nature of all things. When we accept that everything in life is subject to change, we begin to let go of the need to control or possess what we cannot keep. In Letters from a Stoic, Seneca writes, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. The time we have is limited, and the things we lose are not ours to keep forever." When we embrace this reality, we free ourselves from the fear of loss and open ourselves up to the possibility of growth through it. Loss, according to Seneca, offers us a chance to practice amor fati, the love of fate. Instead of fighting against what we cannot change, we must learn to accept it, even embrace it. In On the Shortness of Life, Seneca writes, "It is not the loss of life that is our greatest sorrow, but the way we waste the time we have been given. The Stoic approach to loss is not one of regret or sorrow, but of acceptance and action. It is through this acceptance that we find peace, even in the face of great adversity. When we stop resisting what life brings us, we stop allowing it to define our happiness. We reclaim our power by controlling our responses and finding meaning even in the most difficult circumstances. Seneca's own life offers a powerful example of this philosophy. Throughout his life, he faced immense losses, political exile, the loss of his wealth, and the constant threat of death. Yet, rather than succumbing to bitterness or despair, Seneca used these losses as opportunities to practice and deepen his Stoic beliefs. He did not allow the external world to dictate his sense of self or his happiness. Instead, he turned inward, focusing on his character and his response to the world. For Seneca, each loss was a reminder of the impermanence of all things and an invitation to cultivate virtue, to return to his true self, and to practice the freedom of the mind. His philosophy teaches us that loss can be a powerful tool for self-transformation if we approach it with the right mindset. For the Stoic, loss is also an opportunity to examine our attachments. When we lose something, we are forced to confront our attachments to our wealth, our possessions, our relationships, and our ideas about what constitutes a good life. Seneca teaches that attachment to external things is the root of much of our suffering. When we cling too tightly to something, we become vulnerable to its loss. But when we practice detachment and learn to let go of what we cannot control, we become invulnerable to the pain that accompanies loss. In Letters from a Stoic, Seneca writes, "You are a slave to the things you love most. Lose them, and you will lose yourself." The Stoic practice is not to avoid love or attachment, but to recognize that nothing external is permanent, and to cultivate a sense of inner peace that is not dependent on anything outside of us. Another key element of the Stoic approach to loss is the practice of gratitude. When we lose something, we often focus on what we no longer have, on the emptiness that the loss creates. But Seneca reminds us to focus not on the absence, but on the presence of what we had. Gratitude is the antidote to loss. It allows us to appreciate what we had while we had it, and to acknowledge the gifts that life continues to offer, even in the face of hardship. Gratitude, for Seneca, is a powerful tool for transforming the pain of loss into an opportunity for growth. It helps us find meaning in the midst of difficulty and enables us to see the richness of life, even when faced with its inevitable declines. If there is one thing that makes Seneca's teachings so profound and enduring, it is the way in which he lived his philosophy. Unlike many philosophers who remain distant from the trials of ordinary life, Seneca's life was marked by personal suffering, loss, and the constant confrontation with the fragility of human existence. His ability to remain unwavering in his Stoic beliefs, even in the face of tremendous hardship, provides a powerful example of how one can truly live free, regardless of external circumstances. Seneca did not merely write about freedom and virtue. He embodied these ideals in the most difficult moments of his life. Seneca's personal losses were profound and many. He was born into a life of privilege and wealth, but he quickly learned how precarious such a life could be. He was thrust into the political world at a young age, where he faced constant danger and intrigue. As an advisor to the Emperor Nero, Seneca enjoyed a period of great power, but this was followed by exile, political betrayal, and the constant threat of death. His wealth, his position, and his influence were stripped from him more than once. Despite this, Seneca remained, at least outwardly, calm and composed. His personal suffering was immense, but it never caused him to abandon his Stoic beliefs. Seneca's time in exile is one of the most important chapters in his life. Exile, for a man of his status, was a devastating blow. He lost not only his wealth, but also his position and influence. The shame and humiliation of being forced from Rome could have easily broken him, but Seneca used this time to delve deeper into his Stoic practice. In exile, he wrote many of his most important works, including Letters from a Stoic and On the Shortness of Life. These writings reveal Seneca's unwavering commitment to his philosophy. Even in the face of such adversity, he did not wallow in despair or succumb to bitterness. Instead, he turned inward, using his time away from Rome to reflect on the true meaning of life, freedom, and virtue. Seneca's life also shows us how to face the most difficult loss of all, the loss of life itself. In his final days, Seneca was again forced to confront the ultimate test of his Stoic beliefs. Emperor Nero, paranoid and irrational, ordered Seneca's execution on charges of conspiracy. Rather than being broken by the knowledge of his impending death, Seneca faced it with remarkable equanimity. He spent his final hours writing his thoughts on death and the nature of life, calmly discussing his impending demise with his friends and family. When the order came for him to take his own life, Seneca did so without hesitation, demonstrating the ultimate Stoic response to death: acceptance. His death, as tragic as it was the final proof of his commitment to Stoic philosophy, that true freedom lies in the ability to accept and embrace even death with grace and dignity. This example of Seneca's life, filled with both personal triumphs and tremendous losses, offers us a model for how to live with virtue, even in the face of hardship. Seneca did not teach philosophy from a comfortable position of privilege. He lived it in the midst of suffering, loss, and adversity. His life stands as proof that the Stoic ideal of freedom, freedom from external circumstances, freedom from the fear of loss, is not a distant, unattainable goal, but something that can be realized even in the most difficult of circumstances. In his final moments, Seneca's Stoic resolve was unshaken. He did not mourn his fate or resist the death that awaited him. Instead, he accepted it with calm acceptance, fully aware that his death was not the end of his philosophy, but the ultimate test of it. Seneca's death was not the tragic end of a great philosopher, but the culmination of a life lived in complete alignment with his Stoic beliefs. He taught us that true freedom comes not from avoiding hardship or escaping from loss, but from the ability to meet these challenges with dignity, virtue, and an unwavering commitment to the truth. Through Seneca's life, we learn that the Stoic philosophy is not a mere theory to be discussed or admired from afar. It is a way of living, a practice that must be embraced fully in the face of both joy and suffering. We are all faced with losses, both big and small, throughout our lives. The key, according to Seneca, is not to avoid them, but to confront them with the freedom of the mind. Seneca's life teaches us that no matter what we lose, we still have the power to choose how we respond. In this way, we are always free, even in the most difficult moments of life.